election isn't a reality TV show.
Hillary Clinton is unfit to be our president.
How do you miss $6 billion? You ran the State Department. $6 billion was either stolen, they don't know. It's gone. $6 billion. If you become president, this country is going to be in some mess, believe me. What happened to the FBI? I don't know. We have a great general, four-star general, today, you read it in all the papers, going to potentially serve 5 years in jail for lying to the FBI. One lie. She's lied hundreds of times. That's really what you should be talking about.
It is a little past 11 p.m. in the east, a little past 8 p.m. out west. Wherever you are, we welcome you back to Newsmax TV's coverage of tonight's third and final presidential debate of 2016. We just saw Donald Trump attacking Hillary Clinton on a few hot-button topics, including her stewardship of the State Department, her email scandal, and the curious lack of concern on the part of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. As we just heard a bit earlier via telephone from Newsmax TV political analyst Dick Morris, one matter of concern, what certainly had some people scratching their heads, at least turning them a bit, was a remark toward the end of tonight's debate that Mr. Trump said he might not necessarily accept the results of the election. What we would ask you to accept is our invitation to call in and let us know what you think about tonight's debate. And you can do so by calling us at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. To go more in depth, we're pleased to be joined tonight from Newsmax New York by our own Steve Malzberg. In fact, you see the Steve Malzberg Show weeknights at 7 p.m. Eastern here on Newsmax TV. And also, we have a man who has a way with words and with numbers, pollster John Zogby, who joins us via Skype from Utica, New York. Steve, let me start with you. We are both people who have spent our life communicating ideas. Did Donald Trump get enough across to the American people tonight to be called the victor in this evening's debate?
I don't know. I was a little disappointed. I don't think he was full of life or energy. I think right off the bat he missed a huge opportunity on abortion. Yeah, he brought up partial birth abortion, but he didn't really retort the way someone like you or I, JD, would, who are familiar with this issue and understand that the majority of Americans are on our side on this issue, not on Hillary's side. I thought she ran the table on him on that. He didn't bring up WikiLeaks. It was up to Wallace. Chris Wallace finally brought up WikiLeaks, finally. And there was no mention of Catholics. No mention of so many of the things that these emails have shown. He talked about John Podesta as Podesta, or but didn't say who he was. The uninitiated who are watching this don't know who Podesta is. I just don't think he communicated as well as he did in the second debate. And as far as this not committing to back the results of the election or accept the results of the election, I think he communicated that poorly. What he should have said was, most probably, but let's see what takes place on Election Day. If we have voter fraud or allegations of voter fraud, Hillary has lawyers, I have lawyers, and I'll challenge it if I think something was fishy, just the way Al Gore did not accept the results of the 2000 election and took it to the Supreme Court. But instead he said it differently, and everybody's jumping on him.
Well, the one thing about it, and we've all been in verbal confrontations where we said, gee, I should have said something else. And I was lamenting perhaps he could have turned that to humor, saying, Chris, before I answer that, ladies first. Hillary, since you're going to lose, what are you going to do? Something like that to take the sting out of the moment. But John Zogby, I want to go to you because there's been a sentiment that pretty much these two sides, if you're going to support Hillary, you were there before tonight. If you're going to support Donald Trump, you were there before tonight. Did you see anything tonight that will change some minds? And is that last minute refusal to say I'd abide by the election, is that really the doom that some are forecasting for Donald Trump?
Oh, that was a disaster. That was not only a poor response, it was the wrong response. We have a democracy. I think that Hillary Clinton nailed Donald Trump on the 1987 ad against Ronald Reagan, showing a pattern, and he wasn't able to retort with that. You know, some of it, of course, was the format of the debate. Chris Wallace was pretty tight, you know, in the format. But the night really belonged to Hillary Clinton, and let's face it, she was prepared, she was credible, he got some blows in, but no knockout blows. She probably did herself justice with young women who can make the difference in this election, just as they did at the last minute in 2012. Donald Trump probably made up some of his lost ground after his last couple of weeks, but probably not enough.
Oh, you use that term justice, and I instantly want to respond, why doesn't the Department of Justice really investigate Hillary? But I tell you what, let's bring in someone else who is no stranger to debate, both for political office and on the floor of the United States House of Representatives. My old colleague, former House Republican leader Tom DeLay, joining us tonight via telephone from Texas. Tom, it's good to have you. Your take on what you heard tonight.
Well, for one thing, if you're voting for Trump, you're not voting for an articulate president. I think he did okay, but probably not well enough to expand his base, because he just, if he had just spent 4 hours, because he was told what the issues were going to be, and all you have to do is memorize one sentence for each one of those issues that makes sense. And when I was listening to it, in many of his answers, it was just rambling. It wasn't, at least in his mind, well thought out and prepared. Now, on the other hand, maybe I'm a little biased, but how in the world could anybody vote for Hillary Clinton? Because she, at least to me, appeared to be very well prepared in her liberal leanings. And she is obviously a leftist. She is to the left of Obama's record. And if that's what you want, that's what you're going to get if you vote for Hillary Clinton. So I think a lot of it depends on how Donald Trump handles the next few days or weeks, because I hope to God that his campaign has prepared for a follow-up to the debate. He was horrible in the follow-up in the last debate, and he can support a lot of what he did tonight if he's very well organized in the upcoming few days.
Well, and that's what, let me follow up with you briefly, Tom, and we only have about 45 seconds for this. Look, you and I came from a background running for public office every 2 years. We understood preparation. We understood certain phrases. There is an expectation, as much as I hate to use the term, professional politicians. Yeah. Trump comes at this from the outside. He turned things upside down in the Republican primaries, beat some very capable, very articulate people. Is tonight, given the disappointment that you very candidly shared with us, there's still time for Trump, is there not, to make up for what you call a lackluster performance? 20 seconds.
Yeah, I think so. If he'll just get on the phrase, if you want the status quo, vote for Hillary. If you want change, I'm the change agent. And that's what he's got to push for the next 3 weeks.
Very good. Tom DeLay via telephone from Texas. We appreciate your perspective. John Zogby, we know there will be numbers you will be sampling and crunching in the days ahead, and we appreciate what you had to say. Steve Malzberg, since I get to share this assignment with you, we're going to have you stick around for more insights and analysis. And wherever you are watching this, we ask you to give us a call at 1-877-NEWSMAX. And also you can log on to our website and let us know who you think won the debate. To do so, vote now at newsmaxpolls.com. There's more ahead as our post-debate coverage continues on Newsmax TV. We're pleased to welcome in our next panel. First of all, let's say hello to another of my old colleagues from Capitol Hill, former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Skyping in tonight from Michigan, Pete Hoekstra. Likewise, Skyping in from Southern California, the son of Ronald Reagan, political commentator Michael Reagan. You can find and follow Michael on Twitter at Reagan World. And remaining with us, the host of the eponymously named Steve Malzberg Show, which you see each night at 7 and again at 10 p.m. Eastern each weeknight here on Newsmax TV, our friend Steve Malzberg. Gang, let's go to a caller because we want to hear what they have to say at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. To Fort Bragg, North Carolina now, where Ted is on the telephone. Hi, Ted.
How you doing?
Doing fine. Your take on tonight's debate?
I thought he did a pretty decent job. I wish he attacked her more on talking about how she's for kids and when she's talking about killing fetuses. And on top of that, her husband's raping women, and she's trying to defend those women.
And Ted, we appreciate your input. Let me turn now to the panel. Pete, I prefaced these remarks earlier with Tom DeLay because, you know, obviously, Pete, when you run for public office, we've gone through this before. We would practice for debates. We'd have certain points we'd try to make. Listening to Ted there, he thought Donald Trump did okay, but again, there are missed opportunities. Your take, Pete?
Oh, there's always missed opportunities in every debate, JD. But, you know, I think Donald Trump hit what he needed to hit. Open borders versus a wall, 1% economic growth, anemic economic growth under Barack Obama, and he's shooting for 4 to 5% economic growth, and then in national security. When you talk about Mosul, you talk about Aleppo, you're talking about Raqqa, you are talking about failures of the Obama administration and of Hillary Clinton's term as Secretary of State.
And so he pointed that out.
Gotcha.
Listen, let me turn to Michael Reagan. Michael, tonight, Mr. Trump a bit more restrained by and large. He did ask a question almost like your dad's, are you better off? Your take on tonight's debate, Michael Reagan?
Well, there was no knockout punch tonight, which everybody really wanted him to have to be able to move forward in this campaign. But all the things that our friend Pete Hoekstra just said are absolutely correct. Those points he hit were absolutely where he needed to be. But where he blew it was with his quips. Because the news coming out tonight and tomorrow and the next day will be the fact that he said he will question, he will not support until he looks at it, that person who will win the presidency on November 8th. And so all the good that he does on one side gets wiped out in a heartbeat when he says he would not support the winner of the election, when his campaign manager has said that, when his vice presidential candidate has said that, everybody around him has said that, in fact, they would accept whoever wins.
And that brings me to Stephen. Let me get to Steve Malzberg on this, because, Steve, we've heard this from a few people tonight. Is it so disastrous as to plunge the Trump candidacy off the precipice? 30 seconds, Steve.
Yeah, it could be, because that's what the left, it's the only thing the left is talking about. That, and when he said there were some bad hombres out there when referring to the illegals who killed some of these children of the women that he had brought forth in the audience. So I think tomorrow what he says is he clarifies. He says, what I meant was, if there's shenanigans, if there's something illegal, if illegals were voting, if the voting rolls were filled with dead people who were voting, if, like Al Gore, I see something that I don't like, I reserve the right to challenge it like Al Gore did, but of course I'll accept it otherwise. He has to fix it.
All right, listen, we have to get fixed with a clock. Time is truly a four-letter word. Steve, we know you're going to take a break for a few minutes. Michael Reagan, we appreciate your input tonight from Southern California. When we come back, Brother Hoekstra is still here. We'll also be joined by international reporter Margaret Howell as our coverage of the third and final presidential debate continues here on Newsmax TV.
I think it's
She
time.
has no
you
idea
take a
whether it's
stand,
Russia,
because if-
China, or anybody else.
I am not quoting
she has
myself.
No idea.
I am quoting
Hillary, you
17.
have no idea.
17 do you doubt 17
Our
military
country has
and
no idea.
civilian agencies? Well,
Yeah, I
he'd
doubt
rather
it. I
believe
doubt it.
Vladimir Putin than the military and civilian intelligence professionals who are sworn to protect us. I find that just absolutely
She doesn't
frightening.
like Putin because Putin has outsmarted her at every step of the way.
A contentious exchange involving Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, one of the subjects, Vladimir Putin. A major topic tonight in a far-ranging debate, the third and final debate of campaign year 2016, at least as far as the presidency is concerned. And dealing with intelligence information, I'm pleased to welcome back my former colleague in the House of Representatives who served his time as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, an intelligent fellow in his own right, Pete Hoekstra. Pete, you and I have been in debates, and there are certain phrases when the whole situation came up about intelligence. To me, that was the perfect time for Donald Trump to go into emails. He got there, but a bit later tonight. The fact that he finally got there, does that help him out? Your take on all the back and forth about intelligence, about the Russians, and about our involvement in the Middle East?
Clearly, the earlier he would have gotten to the emails, the better. I think the other place that he could have gone to intelligence was, number one, our intelligence hasn't been all that good lately. You know, there have been reports about CENTCOM, distorting and massaging information so that it fit the Obama narrative. I also can tell you that when it comes to cybersecurity, I've never heard the intelligence community tell me with 100% certainty that they know where the attack originated from. You just don't know that in cyberspace. So he could have gone there. In regards to Putin, Putin has outfoxed this administration, the president and this Secretary of State for the last 7.5 years. Whether it's Syria, whether it's Iran, today, for the first time, I think in 40 years, the Egyptians and the Russians are holding joint military exercises. We are in danger of losing the Middle East to Russia, where they have not been a player since 1967, 1973.
So we have that litany of problems around the world, and yet there is an element in this, and really, to be fair about it, you and I both learned in school, and I'm sure Donald Trump, especially with his education at the Wharton School of Business, being able to think clearly, speak clearly, and write clearly. That second requirement vaults to the first rung, speaking clearly tonight. We come from a political prism, not prison, but prism perspective, you and I, Pete, being more facile on television, seeming better prepared. With Mr. Trump, let's just say it was somewhat lackluster tonight. Hillary was prepared. Does that make the difference, or is there enough time for Mr. Trump to rebound and finish strongly? We've got about a minute left for your perspective.
Yeah, I met with this Mr. Trump on Monday morning for about an hour and a half talking about national security issues. Clearly, this guy's prepared to deal with the issues. A debate format, standing behind a podium, may not be his best, the best format for Mr. Trump to be in. But I thought he hit the points that he needed to hit. Personally, I believe he's fully ready to be president. And the other thing is, everybody is all upset about saying he's not willing to accept the results. Number one, as any good business guy is going to do, he's saying, let's wait till we get to the final deal to see whether it's good or not. In a phrase that, JD, you and I use frequently in politics. He reserved the right to object. Probably won't, but he's reserved the right to object. How many times haven't you and I said that?
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're both going to have to yield back our time because of where we are on the clock. Pete Hoekstra, we appreciate what you had to say, and we will have more coverage and hopefully some of your calls as we continue with our post-debate special here on Newsmax TV. Newsmax TV's coverage of the third and final presidential debate of the campaign year 2016 continues at this point. Welcome back. I'm J.D. Hayworth at Newsmax TV's National Anchor Desk, and we invite you to give us a call to let us know what you thought of tonight's debate. You can call us at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. We are pleased to be rejoined now by presidential historian and Reagan biographer Craig Shirley. Craig, of course, with his fourth volume about Ronald Reagan, due out quite quickly, I believe, as we yield to the springtime here, Craig. But we don't have to wait that long to get some assessments here as we welcome you back into the coverage. In the time you've been away, first of all, we give you due credit for inventing the smirkometer tonight in terms of Hillary Clinton. But there have been concerns raised. Dick Morris and others have said Mr. Trump's answered toward the end of the debate when he said, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to be ready to concede. That could be problematic for him both in coverage tonight and in the papers tomorrow and for the remainder of the campaign. What say you about that now infamous remark?
Sure, because the ultra-leftist corrupt media, of which they gave 96% of their donations to Hillary, is spinning it that way because he pummeled her in 14 out of 15 rounds. He nailed her on the criminality of her campaign, paying homeless people and violent people to disrupt his rallies. He nailed her on Benghazi. He nailed her on Syria. He nailed her on Iran. And every time, and I say that she smirked only half jokingly, is that she has a nervous tick. When she's cornered, when she's caught lying, when she's on the defensive, she smirks. It's just a tick that some people have. And so the media can't talk about the other points that he beat her, about the head and shoulders about. So they pick on the one thing. And by the way, is that it is a conservative's responsibility to question authority. Remember when she was coming up in the 60s, when she was a radical feminist and hippie, at Woodstock, is that the mantra of the left was question authority. But now the conservatives have adopted it. Somehow they object and they defend the institution. Our job as conservatives is to always question authority and raise the idea that elections might be rigged. And in so doing, that will put more sunlight on the election to ensure it is not rigged.
Bringing some more sunlight to this discussion, albeit acknowledging that it's late at night on the East Coast, is the gentleman you see each weeknight here on Newsmax TV at 7 and again at 10 p.m. Eastern, our good buddy Steve Malzberg. Steve, picking up on what Craig Shirley had to say, my old House colleague Pete Hoekstra just a couple of minutes ago said, no, wait a minute. Donald Trump's a businessman, and I don't mean to be trite about this, Steve, but I had the image of, you know how you go out to eat sometimes and they bring the check? Trump reminds me of a guy who will go through the check the facts and figures, and make sure he's been charged fairly. Is that a reasonable analogy for him to bounce back with tomorrow in terms of election results?
Yeah, I think in that language or using a different analogy or different language, I think he needs to clear it up. And he needs to say either the campaign issues a statement or better yet, when he goes on any shows or when he holds his next rally, says, look, when I said I would let you know on election night if I accept the results, if I should lose, I can't commit to that. That's a blank check, and I don't give blank checks, which is to your analogy. And I got to see if there's voter fraud. I got to see if there's people at the polls with billy clubs, Black Panthers, like there were in Philadelphia. I have to reserve my judgment until after the fact. I think he needs to do that. And because the left, as Craig Shirley correctly stated, they are going nuts with that, and they're also going nuts with the hombre comment. There are some bad hombres when he was talking about the illegals in this country who commit murder.
That is so ludicrous about that when he's talking about a serious subject such as the border. Tell you what, let's find out what some of our viewers thought about tonight's debate and what appealed to them and maybe what didn't. At 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629 to New Albany, Indiana is where Louise is on the line. Hi, Louise.
Hi, how are you?
Doing fine. What's your take?
Well, I think he did just fine. He's not a politician. He's a businessman. And the last thing that America needs is another politician. We need somebody to get us back on course. And we don't need a liar. We don't need a thief. We don't need all of that to do it. We need Mr. Trump.
All right. We appreciate that, Louise. Now let's go out to Littleton, Colorado, where Mike may have some thoughts for us. Hi, Mike.
Hi, JD. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing well. Your take on everything this evening, Mike?
So, JD, I think you hit the high points, security and economics, that most people and me care about. No amnesty, secure the border, restore law enforcement, defend the Second Amendment, great. But he did something that I've been waiting to hear finally. He's a reform candidate. He's not a lawyer. He almost said it the way I said it. Our enemy is not the Russians. The Russians are our cousins. The enemy is ISIS. Hillary completely took her eye off the ball on ISIS. They spread to, I think he said, 32 countries. This is insane. Why were we paying her all this money to be Secretary of State? But we're not supposed to fight the Russians. They're our kindred spirits.
And as you say that, Mike, my colleague Steve Malsberg is nodding along with you. Steve, is this a case where we often talk about the voice of the people? In this case, it's the ears of the people back home, while the leftist press and those of us in politics focus on one thing, what Mike points out from Littleton, Colorado, as being a basic truth. Do you believe that resonates beyond Mike's house in Littleton, elsewhere in this country, in terms of foreign policy?
Yeah, I think when he says, wouldn't it be nice if we could get along with the Russians and combine our efforts and go after ISIS, because you've had your eyes on the wrong ball. We've been going after Assad, who he stressed, I don't like Assad. You're going to say I do now, but I don't like Assad. He's a bad guy. But we have to concentrate on getting ISIS. One other thing, when Chris Wallace brought up, and this is what I thought the caller might have said when he said he was waiting to hear this, when Chris Wallace brought up the Clinton Foundation, Trump shocked me. I was so happy. He said, would you give back the money that you took from countries that throw gays off of rooftops and treat women like garbage? But he didn't pursue it. He didn't say, will you? Will you? And, I wish he would have pursued that.
Well, and this is part of what happens, because tonight, Craig Shirley, Donald Trump was much more restrained, much more reserved, and ironically, some of the people who said he was too animated earlier now thought he was a bit too Sphinx-like tonight. Your take on his demeanor, and how does that come out in the wash? We've got about a minute left.
I thought it was just fine. I agree with you. He was much more reserved in the first 20 minutes to a half hour, but then he became much more animated. It is clear, obviously, that these two people just really loathe each other. They just can't stand each other. It is from their body language to their interruption of each other to their attacks on each other to in every way, shape, and form. They just can't stand each other. This is I can't recall the last time when two politicians hated each other so much.
Well, we might have to go.
Maybe 72 with Nixon and McGovern.
Maybe, or we might have to go back to Adams and Jefferson, but I don't know if it'll get that way. Steve, let me ask you about that. The aspect of loathing. Did loathing lead to a kind of lackluster performance on the part of both of them? 30 seconds, Steve.
I don't know. I know that the media made a big deal beforehand. Will they shake hands beforehand and then afterward? Are they going to shake hands afterwards? I don't know. I think you're going to have 50 million people who vote for Donald Trump, whether that's enough to win, who are going to despise Hillary Clinton afterward for 4 years, and vice versa. I just don't see this country coming together. Hillary's not the kind of person that would bring the country together. We're all deplorables to her, and I wish Trump would have mentioned that as well.
Some missed opportunities, gentlemen. I wish we could spend more time talking, but the clock on the wall gets to us. Craig Shirley, thanks very much. Steve, we know we'll see you in a bit, and we'll see you every weeknight here on Newsmax TV. And what we want you to see at home is this question. Who do you think won tonight's debate? Cast your vote at newsmaxpolls.com. Back with a roundtable of our Newsmax TV colleagues on what they saw, what they thought, and more of your calls as our post-debate coverage rolls on this evening from Newsmax TV.
We need the wall and the Border Patrol, ICE, they all want the wall. We stop the drugs. We shore up the border. One of my first acts will be to get all of the drug lords, all of the bad ones. We have some bad people in this country that have to go out. We're going to get them out. We're going to secure the border. And once the border is secured, at a later date, we'll make a determination as to the rest.
Donald Trump returning to the topic of illegal immigration. It's what won him early support in the fight for the Republican nomination. Was that enough to keep that support and build on that in tonight's final presidential debate? J.D. Hayworth back with you on Newsmax TV's National Anchor Desk, and I am joined by my colleagues. I think we have a nice shot to show everybody in the family here. Ironically, to my left but screen right, our friend Ed Berliner, Miranda Kahn, John Bachman here, and from Newsmax New York, Bill Tucker joins us. Bill, we appreciate it, and I believe our old pal Steve Malzberg is there as well. Yes, so lady, and gentlemen, let's go to the phones at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. Out to the city where the debate was held this evening, Las Vegas. That's where Rick is on the phone. Rick, your take on what you saw. Were you there in person or watching on television?
No, I was watching on television as usual, and to me, Hillary is like the second verse, same as the first. So, and not only that, Donald Trump strikes me as a very, very good businessman to reserve the right to concede if he was to lose to Hillary just because this voter fraud. And I'm a Democrat. Now I'm a Republican, and I'm changing tomorrow morning.
So tonight is what changed your mind. You're going down to re-register. Of course, you could be valuable as a Democrat for Trump, Rick, but we do appreciate the call. Let's turn to the assembled multitude here right now. Miranda Kahn, you hear that from Rick. Yeah. Does it just bear out the Donald Trump phenomenon?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I wish we could have asked him. I want to know specifically a little bit more what changed his mind, because I've been hearing you and several other people say, Ed was mentioning this earlier, that we were hearing much of the same thing that we have heard from Trump throughout this entire election cycle. I mean, we stuck with the issues in the beginning, but he didn't really elaborate, didn't give us the how I'm going to do this.
Well, he does paint with broad brush strokes and superlatives. But with a lot of folks, they say, Ed, that they understand what he's saying.
I understand, but I didn't hear anything new. He started off very slowly. I thought it was kind of interesting that he tried to, it seems as if he was trying to be very calm, but you knew that eventually it was going to be the Donald Trump that everybody knows and loves. He went back to the old standards that I think he knew he was going to win with. His refusal to accept the legitimacy of the election is an epic fail. Quite frankly, because I think anybody that wants to be president of the United States needs to accept the will of the people. There is no evidence of massive voter fraud. And as somebody who has a great amount of respect for women, I am insulted, as are many of the people that I've talked with in the last hour, about his comment, "you nasty woman," that he said. I thought that those were two big mistakes.
Oh, man.
Here's Steve Malzberg uttering an "oh, man" out there. Steve, go ahead.
He said, "you nasty woman," in response to a nasty comment from a woman who gratuitously, when she was answering a question on reforming Social Security taxes, snidely remarked, "unless Donald will probably find a way around paying that too." So it was a nasty remark by a nasty woman, and he called her out on it.
A gentleman and a leader does not do that. Sorry. The man who wants to be the leader of a country doesn't do that, as does somebody who says and claims falsely that he has respect for women.
And yet what we heard from Rick a minute ago was kind of Rick was saying about Hillary, you know, it's the same thing from Hillary. It's scripted, it's rehearsed. Craig Shirley, John Bugman, Craig was telling us about a smirkometer. When Hillary gets in trouble, she smirks.
There was so many opportunities there for Donald Trump to pin Hillary Clinton down, put his boot on her neck, figuratively speaking, of course, and end it, but he just didn't do it. She fought back on the Russian issue. She was able to squirm her way out of the abortion issue. And also, Donald Trump had two unforced errors tonight that are not just going to be used in the news cycle tomorrow, but voters in Florida and Ohio are going to be hearing that comment about "you nasty woman" without the context that Steve provided. And they're also going to hear the comment about him not willing to accept the outcome of the election. Those are two campaign commercials that we can expect in heavy rotation in those swing states. no matter what he said, you cannot provide the opportunity to the opposition with those types of words in these elections. It's the last opportunity he's going to have to be on the debate stage with Hillary Clinton. And I don't think, Dick Morris said he blew it.
Well, I tell you what.
May have.
Yeah, well, let's reserve the last word in this little discussion. Back to Newsmax New York for Bill Tucker. Bill, is it gloom and doom and epic fail and all is lost?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Look, he obviously has a base that are going to remain devoted to him. But it was an epic fail when he said he wouldn't commit to abiding by the results of the election. For heaven's sakes, Richard Nixon, when he lost to Kennedy in 1960, had every reason to challenge it. In history has shown us he probably should have challenged it, and he was given a choice. And he said, no, I don't want to put the country through it. I don't want to divide this country. He took the high road out because he wanted to see a unified United States of America. Donald Trump apparently doesn't care. That was what he left us with.
Al Gore challenged it.
That's what he left us with.
Al Gore challenged it.
Al Gore challenged it, went to court, and then had to concede. I can't believe that a man is running for the presidency of the United States. I love you, Steve. You know that. I love you, Steve. But if you're not going to abide by the process, don't participate.
We're getting that New York state of mind and that discussion that we love here from our Newsmax roundtable, both here on the anchor desk and from New York. There is more of that ahead. And also, of course, who do you think won the debate? Log on to newsmaxpolls.com and let us know there. All this plus more of your calls at 1-877-NEWSMAX as our coverage of tonight's third presidential debate rolls on.
She wants open borders. People are going to pour into our country. People are going to come in from Syria. She wants 550% more people than Barack Obama. And he has thousands and thousands of people. They have no idea where they come from. And you see, we are going to stop radical Islamic terrorism in this country. She won't even mention the words, and neither will President Obama.
Donald Trump with more rhetorical attacks on Hillary Clinton. Did they land? Were they effective? We're all assembled here on our national desk in Florida. Miranda Kahn, John Bogman, Ed Berliner. Newsmax New York, we've got Bill Tucker and also Steve Malzberg along. And final thoughts, ladies first. Miranda, your take on what you learned tonight.
Well, I don't think he's going to lose any of his support. I don't think he expanded his base. Maybe he wasn't expecting to. But you know what? I hate to say it's over because we've been wrong the entire, not saying we necessarily, but all the political pundits have been wrong. The polls have been wrong. No one thought he would have gotten this far. So who's to say?
Well, John Bogman might have a say in this. What do you think?
My prediction is that there's going to be even more senators, GOP senators, who are going to defect from Donald Trump tomorrow. They're going to run scared, run for the hills. We've already seen some of that, and Bill Kristol saying on Twitter tonight that House and Senate candidates should start talking about the actuality of a President Clinton so they can start pushing the image of checks and balances.
Bill Kristol, a guy who really worked hard on behalf of the party. Ed Berliner.
Donald Trump proved once again that he has a tape recorder that runs in his head and all he has to do is push play and out comes the same cliche every single time. So does Hillary Clinton in many ways. I agree with Miranda. He's not going to lose any of his core supporters. I don't see a lot of independent voters moving to him now. I don't see anybody defecting from Hillary Clinton. I think he missed his opportunity tonight in many ways. He had a chance. There was no knockout punch.
Bill Tucker, Newsmax New York, your final take on what we saw.
Well, I happen to agree with everything that's said down there. I don't think either side really won or gained very much. I think this race remains a dead heat. But, JD, I'm going to leave you with these words. These are my final thoughts, and I'm quoting somebody. It's in these difficult years, America has suffered from a fever of words. We cannot learn from one another until we stop shouting at one another. Those words go back to January of 1969 when Richard Nixon finally won his much sought-after presidency, and I think we could learn from him today.
Bill Tucker with the rehabilitation of Richard Nixon, discussing his nobility in 1960 and now with his opening words in the inauguration. Well, while we get revisionism on Dick Nixon tonight, Steve Malzberg, your take on what we saw. About 30 seconds for your thoughts, sir.
I think Trump missed some great opportunities. He didn't bring up the Catholic bashing and all the horrific emails that took to test Latinos and gays and blacks and others from Hillary and Podesta. So he missed opportunities. I think he's going to fix the, he's going to make the Gore analogy and fix the I didn't accept the results in advance issue. And I think the women, the nasty woman, which what she showed to be by that comment, is just a red herring.
Well, from red herrings to concerns and live and in color, we thank you all for your time. For what it's worth, it was another installment of a debate in a year where we have seen a Trump phenomenon, and one debate does not an election win or lose, but we'll see how you play it, which brings us along to what we would ask from you. First of all, we've been asking this all night. And you've been calling us tonight to let us know, but now we'd like you to memorialize that on the internet. The simple question is this: who won the debate? And the way you vote is to log on and vote right now at newsmaxpolls.com. Certainly a lot of things we saw tonight, but as one who has participated in his share of political debates and performances, it is important to remember that preparation prevents a poor performance. Perhaps words for everyone, regardless of their political philosophy or partisan label, to remember. For now, J.D. Hayworth, on behalf of my colleagues here on the National News Desk and our friends at Newsmax New York, thank you for watching. Stay brave, stay free, stay tuned.